All right, everybody, welcome into the Fifth Dimension podcast. For today's show, I am joined by GaKnew Roxwel, multifaceted artist, social worker, a man of many talents, that I can't even begin to explain in one sentence because, so well versed. GaKnew, it's a pleasure to be able to connect and have you on the show, man.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and as I was just saying a little bit before we hopped on, I've been really engaging with a lot of your work and there's something about it that's very grounded in its approach. And I think like you've experienced life and like there's, you're not just talking about these concepts and ideas, you've lived through them, you see it every day. So I was wondering if you could just start by talking a little bit about your own background and, kind of what maybe your upbringing and how that influences the work you're doing now and sort of the perspective and the bigger why behind your work, because there is a lot of purpose and meaning, behind your art, behind your social work, everything that you've been doing.
Yeah. That's funny. I'm actually just finished writing a song called The Why. And it was I might need to take this audio bite.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
but yeah, like I'm an inner city Los Angeles kid. I grew up in like the 80s, 90s. So I kind of saw the boom of like the crack epidemic and all that in Los Angeles. And just being an African American kid in the inner city, I think, of course, has an impact, right? On
Yeah.
it's impossible for it not to, with like, I mean, we live in America. Um, and so, but for me, there's that component, the historic component, but then I'm also kind of live nomadically in a sense throughout LA. So um, I was born in Compton, then raised throughout South Central. But then in my middle school years, we moved to the west side of LA, which is before you and I were talking about, you were saying like you got familiar with Santa Monica and stuff like that. That's more like the west side of LA, which
Mm.
is completely different from the east side of LA. So that had a big impact on me also, right? Just as you said, I've kind of lived the experiences and not just like talking about it. So you kind of have some people that they grow up or they exist in these sort of like silos, right? Where like all you have is like the East Side Black experience. But so you have all these prejudice that we all have prejudice because just from ignorance, right? If we don't have the experiences, we just go off of hearsay and what we hear or what media shows us. And we don't really have the experience for ourselves. So I feel like for me at a young age, I began to realize that there's more to the story. It's not just the side that I hear from my elders or the side that I hear in my community. That when I start going around people from other like ethnic backgrounds and stuff like that, I begin to see it's not completely the way they say. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, not everybody hates you, not everybody's out to get you. Although, like, yeah, some of that stuff exists, racism exists, prejudice exists, but that's not in everybody. And I think with having that at an early age, like middle school, seventh grade, eighth grade, I just took that approach to life, like understanding that life is there's just a lot of surface stuff that we deal with, or like conversations are very surface in life and it's full of prejudice.
Mm.
And a lot of people have commentary only knowing the surface. Like they don't know
Yeah.
what lies beneath. So a lot of the conversations that is just hearsay is all based off of surface information of people not really knowing what they're talking about.
Mm. Mm.
Um, and even social work and me being a poet and you being a poet yourself, I'm pretty sure
Hmm.
poets tend to get on the soapbox, right? And we
Yeah.
like complain about the system and complain about this, that, and the other thing. But once I began to work in social work, I began to see the truth about that, right? Like going into these homes and meeting the families, and it's just not a black and white experience. There's shades of gray. You know, it's a spectrum, and nobody's perfect and nobody's 100% right or 100% wrong. And so you see that people's behaviors are driven by really like their deficits, you know what I mean? Or like needs and unmet needs
Mm.
is what drives people's behaviors. So yeah, it's just so much to it,
Yeah.
you know? Like,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I love that you said there's more to the story because I think a big thing that I myself have, especially as I've gone through the almost poetic journey in a way, and
mm,
before even involved, because I have a similar work background in the sense of working in schools, right? And I've worked
right.
with the homeless population up here in Bozeman currently, right?
Mm,
And so kind of seeing the groundwork, what's actually happening. But even before that work, I would say in my poetic journey, it's like, okay, there is a soapbox that you can stand on, and you can look at the world, and you can look at the problems, you can look at the system, you can look at all of these different um, ideas, and it's easy, I think, for us to want to have this entity that is out to get us in a way. In a way, it can almost drive us, right? Oh, this thing's working against me. Watch me now. I'm
yeah,
gonna go beat this thing. But
right.
once you start really looking at it, you start getting to the roots, you realize this is a byproduct of all of our creation, right? This is
Yeah.
this is what we're feeding into, it's what we're buying into.
And that is the system. Like the system is the byproduct of all of us, our prejudices, our, the what I was saying before, the things that are driving us, we create this whole thing. And that is a system in itself.
Right. And I think that's also the world is made up of different systems, whether it be at the within our community level or on a large scale global level, right? And it's
Right, right,
a method of organization is really
right,
what it is. And it's
right, right.
individuals at the operating level, you
Yeah.
know. So I think it's important. What would you say it was that gave you the willingness to go beneath the surface, because I think sometimes it is easy even in art to look at the problems and see the problems. I think a lot of people have great bullshit meters in a way. Like they can see that
Right,
there are issues, there are things wrong, and it's
right,
easy to point them out, right? And
right, right.
so what do you think it was that allowed you to be willing to go underneath the surface? Because I think that it starts with a level of like internal accountability first and foremost, and a lot of people don't necessarily have that.
Yeah. I mean, with that being said, I think that that was just a blessing. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, you know what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
yeah, I think that that was just a blessing. Some people have different perspectives and ways that they approach life
Hmm.
that is it's not their creation. You know what I mean? Like your approach to life is not necessarily your creation. And we can see that in babies, like um two babies in the same space will react to life differently,
Hmm.
and the way that they react to life is not their creation. That's just something that's built into them,
Yeah.
um yeah, so I can say that I was raised in a single parent home, just my mom, and she often had two jobs, right? So I was like a latchkey kid, home alone all the time. And so with that, and it's not like I didn't have like video games and a bunch of toys and stuff like that. So I had my brain, you know what I
Hmm.
mean? So it was a lot of creativity, just art, building things, trying to figure things out, entertaining myself. And so I think I spent a lot of time in my head alone, being creative and figuring things out, and so then that's my approach to life. It grows in different things as you engage in life, and I think naturally I'm a problem solver, and
Hmm.
so like being from a community that like there's all these woes and there's all these complaints. And there's always a finger pointing at the system and what is wrong, what is wrong, what is wrong. My natural instinct as a child was to, okay, let's figure this thing out, you know. Um, and so as you begin to try to figure the thing out, then you're like, wait, but then there's this part that we could affect,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? That we could fix and change. And and so just even with my own family, you begin to learn like there's different types of people. There's the people who really want to solve the thing, and then there's the people that get attention from complaining, and what they really want is the attention. So they need something to complain about. And then you have the people who function out of fear, and they have like they have their safe bubble, and they fear if you get is going to take away from what they have. So you have all of these different types of people and nuances kind of like working against each other, you know.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that fear is a huge thing too. And it plays in different waters for different people, right? There's some
Yeah.
people who might have they're not sure they're making rent every month, but they're still able to thrive creatively, whereas another person that might paralyze them, right? So everybody kind
Right.
of responds to fear a little bit differently,
Right.
uh, and how their needs are being met. I think the needs thing is the in my own observation, whether it was working in schools or working the homeless now, it's like it's all about needs. If people have their
Mm-hmm.
needs met, then they can
Mm-hmm.
start to, all right, I want to let me start thinking about what the next step is. Let me
Yeah.
start thinking about how I can improve my own situation.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times we can't even look at the bigger picture without looking at our own, without dealing with our own
Right.
like what's going on directly in my life that I'm responsible for.
Right.
Let me attend to that first. If
Mm-hmm.
I don't have housing, I can't even begin to think about the larger issues in my own community,
Right. Right.
right? If so and I
Yeah.
that's something I think we could both speak to in the populations
Yeah.
that we've worked with, right? And that's
Yeah.
it's something
Absolutely.
I think that's something that's maybe lost in the bigger debate when we talk about some of these
Yeah.
issues, right? That's
And I think another thing that's lost too is, working in this line of work, being the helper, right? Being like the social worker,
mm,
we can often assume that we see the need that the person has that's not being met.
mm,
And that's one thing that I learned too, right? Like I might look at it as, all right, it's a homeless person. What they need is housing, and what they need is
right.
food, or what they need is a source of revenue so that they can pay for the housing and pay for their food. But then as you work with them and you try to like solve all these things, and then it seems like they're self-sabotaging, and like you help set up this situation for them to have better, and all of a sudden they do something to derail that. And you begin to see um they want attention more than that, or they want some kind of like they want friendship more than that. So, oftentimes dealing with the system, like the judge is saying, um, with me dealing with like kids in juvenile hall, like the judge is saying you can no longer hang out with these particular individuals because they're gang banging and smoking weed or whatever like that. And so, in order for the kid to have this better housing situation, they can't hang around their friends anymore, but their friends is more important to them than this group home over here. You know
Right.
what I mean? So, and the system is not seeing that part of it, like the emotional part of it, or whatever other ties that are going on. And sometimes it's not, oftentimes it's not easy to identify what it is. Like we can see the situation and think that we see what it is, but it's
Yeah.
something different.
Entirely different. And I think we really root out those social, emotional, and spiritual aspects to
Yeah,
people for this larger systematic efficiency, if you will, right? Because the
yeah.
judge in that situation might have good intentions. I like to
Oh
assume,
yeah,
I like to assume they have good intentions, but like it's like, all right, legally we're bound. We tend to don't uh acknowledge those emotional factors because in that
yeah,
situation, hanging out with friends who, I guess you call them a gangbang or whatever it is, but that's serving the need, which I think is the fundamental need for connection, for
Yeah.
community, for,
And not only connection, but protection. You know what I mean? Like if you're growing up, spaces I grew up in, the system is the enemy. Like that's how the system is viewed as the enemy. And, you know, and not even to say that that's wrong in a sense, because as a community, the experiences over time with the system, like the system has evolved. But, if you get hit by a car and 20 years pass, and then all of a sudden they're making cars out of like foam, you still know the pain of getting hit by the car.
yeah,
You're not going
yeah.
to trust, oh, it's a foam car, I'm okay. And so we have to look at like the impact of that. And some of these people, like whether it be homeless people or kids with juvenile probation or whatever, oftentimes don't trust the systems, don't trust the social workers, don't trust the police, don't trust paramedics. I was dealing with one kid. He caught a case because in his group home, a friend overdosed. The paramedics came to try to help the friend, but the kids in the group home thought the paramedics was being too rough with the kid that they were coming to save.
Mm.
And so the kids started fighting the paramedics because the paramedic is part of the system, and y'all out to get us. There's no trust. That's a really relevant thing that sometimes those of us outside of it can't understand it. We're like, it's
Mhm.
the paramedics. Clearly they're there to help you. But that might not be that kid's experience from the
Mhm.
space that he comes from. Um, yeah,
Have you found successful ways to, I guess, rewrite the narrative of, because ultimately, like we were kind of talking about, we are as much of the system as the system
yeah,
itself, right? So, like, rewriting, especially with kids, I think it's a little tougher as they get older. And, I'm dealing with somebody who's 55 and, mental health challenges, and they're dead set on their ideas of
yeah,
what the system is, right? It's very difficult to uproot that,
yeah,
especially
yeah,
working with kids. Is there certain ideas and ways you can present and change the narrative that kind of allows them to be like, oh, the paramedics, let me put my, what my prejudice aside in a sense, and
mhm.
trust here, kind of allowing deeper vulnerability. Is there a way that you're finding that is successful to rewrite those narratives? Because when I look at it, the bigger picture, that feels like if we want bigger change, it kind of almost has to start at that level.
Yeah, it has to start even before that.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. Like, and I think that's kind of been my journey, is trying to rewrite that. Especially like I'm focusing more on my music now because I began to see that
Mhm.
doing it person by person is so slow, and the problem is so big
Yeah.
that I need a bigger effect. So I try to like write more about it in my music and use that as a platform just to kind of have these conversations. But definitely even myself as a social worker, right? I was a hip hop artist before I was a social worker.
Yeah.
So um me going in working with the kids as a social worker, I don't, a social worker, I don't have a hat on and all that. So I come in as a regular social worker.
Mhm.
But then as we begin to have like conversation, and I talk to them about the things that they're interested in. If they say that they're interested in music, a lot of kids, they want to rap. So I'm like, oh, okay, you rap? Like, let me hear something, let me hear some bars or something. And then it's like the language and the lingo. And I might let them know I rap too and trade verses, and all of a sudden the walls come down because, like, oh wait, you're not you're a
Yeah.
social worker, but you're not a social worker. Um, and that has worked for me a lot, just building rapport on that level, being from a similar community as them, kind of speaking their language, and the art thing. Hip hop has really worked as a bridge in that sense. Even though I'm a lot older than them, it still functions as a bridge. which then for them, because I like I said, the system is the enemy, right? Like the social worker is the one that took the kid from their parents and everything that they knew and put them in this group home full of strangers, people they don't know, and oftentimes kids from other hoods that they don't get along with. So now you took me from my parents and what I perceived as safety, no matter if they were like beating me or if they were negligent, always high and leaving me home with no food, whatever you think that was, I found safety in it compared to being moved 25 miles away in a placement where my roommate is from another gang
Mhm.
or a gang that doesn't like the neighborhood that I grew up in. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
we gotta judge the safety. What's the safety? Um, and so like yeah, I lost my point, but yeah, but
Yeah.
you know, like yeah, I lost my point. But
All right,
oh,
that's a
what did you ask me initially?
so like essentially, well, and where you were going with that, it gets me thinking about almost building bridges through, the direct connection, because it's kind of looking at
Okay.
the root, looking at the root of, I think, a lot of the troubles within the system. It starts at a more community level. And
Hmm.
so, and I think, what you're talking about, especially with um, being a hip hop artist and kind of moving in that direction to make a larger impact, I do think there is oh, and this is something I want to ask about as well. And I think this is a nice segue into it. It's kind of planting seeds for almost like a cultural
Yeah,
revolution in a
yeah,
way. I think that's something that's directly needed because the system,
yeah,
as much as it is us. I like to do a lot of as a poet, a lot of wordplay and look at the meaning of words in a
right,
way.
right.
And just looking at the word cultural, for example, or
Hmm.
culture. The first four letters of it are cult, C-U-L-T, and a
Hmm.
lot of times that has a negative connotation. But what that just means is it's a group that we tend to worship or something that we view as higher than ourselves, right? So I think a lot
Hmm.
of times when we look at culture, we view it as this is bigger than us and we can't necessarily change it. So we feed into it and we buy into it, right? But the
Hmm.
greatest cultural shifts are led by individuals. They're led by somebody with a message, with an idea, with
Yeah,
a
yeah.
dream. And so
That
I think,
resonates with people.
right,
Right.
that resonates. So I think there is a definite like hunger for a cultural shift that can feed a systematic change, because right, that
Hmm.
as much as it's fed by individuals, individuals are fed by culture, right?
Right.
they're fed by the system. It's like a
Yeah.
it's like a yin
It's
and
circular.
yang, if you will, right?
Yeah.
It
Yeah. Yeah.
reciprocates one another. So
Absolutely. Right.
I think there's a big need for that. And is that sort of, I mean, how do we even, that's such a large topic. How do we even begin to
That's
start
my
shifting
goal.
that? Right.
That's my goal, especially being a hip hop kid, right? Like, I mean, I'm not a kid anymore, but I grew up as a hip hop kid. And when I grew up with hip hop, we had Tribe Called Quest, we had
Mhm.
like Public Enemy, we had just Native Tongue and General and Souls of Mischief and Farside. And like we had these other voices that weren't just thugs. You know what I mean? Just
Mhm.
being frank, being honest. Like, um, when we think of hip hop now, it's all like murder you. It's all the worst parts of my community, honestly. Like it's the parts of my community that cause us as kids growing up in the community to not feel safe. Like when I was growing up in a community, yeah, the dudes on my block, I might know them, but as soon as I'm walking through another neighborhood, all the things that everybody's rapping about are the things that made me not feel safe in that community.
Mhm.
And so, like, if that's all that the music is, we begin to perpetuate that. Like, it's encouraging the environment because the kids are looking up to this as a teacher. And my students found out that I rap or whatever, so it began to spread around the school, right? That this the,
Mhm.
the teacher that rap. So hey, they would come to my classroom during in between periods and they want to rap or share bars or whatever. And I had a student that he was my student like all year, second semester. He finds out I rap and he comes over and I'm like, all right, let me hear something. And all of a sudden, when he's rapping about selling drugs. I'm like, dude, this is not you. Like this, the
Hmm.
person that the persona you're putting on to write this rap is not the kid that I see every day come into my classroom. Um, but he perceives that it's synonymous. Like that character goes along with rapping. In order to rap, I have to be this character. And that's really problematic, you know? Like, and the dudes rapping, we're not taking accountability
Hmm.
for it. You know, it's having a really negative impact on the community. Like I get that that character exists in the community. I get that, okay, you feel like that's your story and you want to tell your story. But at some point, um, where's the accountability of wanting your community to be better? Like you just want it to be the same of what you knew, or do you want something better to happen? Because you can talk about where you came from, but then offer something different, like offer, okay, what we should be doing. And I think that that's needed is we should be offering what we want the community to look like, not just, you know, all that we feel like we've known.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. What would you, what would be your vision for the community now? Especially, you have a young kid in this situation. Let's say he is rapping about, drugs and all of these things, and he's not that person. How do you inspire that? All right, well, bring out who you are. Bring
Well, yeah,
out
that's
that.
what I try to do. That's what I try to do, and that's part of the reason why I share with them that I rap, right? Because
Yeah.
my raps aren't that, you
Yeah.
know, and that's kind of like the reason I exist still as a rapper. Because I could just let rap go, right? but
Yeah.
um, but at the same time, I feel like my voice is needed. Like there's a huge void, and I'm just talking about life, you know, like you know, life is me as a social worker, life is me as a teacher, life is me as a father, or just a member of the community. But there's a lot of life going on outside of this story of selling drugs and you know disrespecting women and
Hmm.
just the violence. There's a lot of other life. Like those, it's all death, honestly. Like all
Yeah.
they're talking about is death. And and we don't have enough life in the music. So I try to encourage that by sharing with them what I'm doing, but also with flair, right? Like
Yeah.
part of hip hop is humor. Part of hip hop is being clever and being witty, and all of that stuff still has to be present. You know, I can't just like beat them over the head with messages like this is what you should be doing.
Yeah.
It has to be fun. And so like I try to bring that to the music too, you know, so that it can be something that they want to engage with. And surprisingly, the kids are like, oh man, we rock with you like this, you know, they love it.
Yeah.
And I think that that needs to be respected. Like the genre doesn't respect that the kids, the or just the listeners actually want something different. They don't just want the negativity that you're giving, and and you're giving it saying that that's all that they want, but it's not all that they want, you know?
Right. It's probably all that they're used to engaging with. And it's interesting
Yeah,
because I think there's a place for it in the sense where you don't want to deny the
voice. Right.
experiences that are negative, right? You can't
Right.
ignore the fact that there are certain aspects of the community that are, you know, like if anything, there's a time and a place for that expression. And
Right.
but I like what you're saying. It's like the idea of voice no negatives without a solution. Okay, let's voice it. Let's express it. Let's see it exactly for what it is and actually dive into it instead of burying our heads in the sand and running away
Right.
from it. I think it's very easy to ignore a lot of these issues, especially if you're coming from an outside perspective. I mean, before working with the homeless population, I could probably say unconsciously I was one of those people who would naturally want to turn away from somebody
Yeah.
who's living on the street, right? Why
Mhm.
is that? I mean, this is another person, this is a human being, and
Right.
really there's not much difference between myself and them, hardly any at all besides
Right.
circumstance, right?
Right.
So
Right.
it's like a lot of people. it's easy to just ignore that shadow side. But I think, if anything, with it being so prevalent in the culture, and I'd be curious your thoughts on this, like maybe this, with it being so prevalent, it's because it's a cry for help and people need to look at it, right? That's why it's in our face in the culture, because
Mhm.
everywhere else we're ignoring it. So there needs to be an outlet for its expression, right? There needs
And some,
somebody needs to do something and see it so it's
yeah,
presented in the arts.
and sometimes it's not a cry for help. It's sometimes it's a cry for attention. You
Hmm.
know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I think that's what time has shown me, that there's a difference. Like not every cry is a cry for help, right? Like some cry for the attention that they get, you
Right.
know? And when you try to bring help, it's like, oh, let me go. I'm like, because if you help me, you're gonna change my circumstance. And then I no longer get the attention that I'm getting because they don't know how to get attention outside of crying. And I
Hmm.
think that's you know, one of another major thing. Like, I mean, it kind of goes into parenting, you know,
Yeah.
like nobody wants to look at the like the community needs to be parented, but like,
Yeah.
you know, it's especially as a poet, because I went into poetry from hip hop, right? Like
Hmm.
I had been rapping all when I was a kid, and then pursuing music, the music was shifting into like the puffy and like Notorious Big and all that. So there wasn't room. My space was like the native tongue space, was like the Tribe Called Quest, the Roots, Common. That's my space in hip hop. But that space was getting very narrow and disappearing as they moved into the Jay-Z, Biggie Smalls
Hmm.
era, you know? And so for me, that sent me into the poetry venues because I could still rap. I just do it as a poem rather than as a rap, and the people will listen, you know. But what I began to see in the poetry space is that it's pain pimping. Like
Hmm.
a lot of people, they get on stage and they pimp their pain, right? Like they talk about the darkest things that happen in their lives so that they can be, it's for the applause,
Hmm.
so they can be the poet that's worshiped, you know what I mean? Like, and it's really sad because um it's like the more traumatic your experience is, that you then write a poem about your traumatic experience,
Hmm.
the room goes wild and all of a sudden you're the poet that everybody wants to book for the venue. um and I was a slam poet. So for me, I kind of went into that because it was kind of related to being a battle rapper, right? Like I went from battle rapping and oh man, now I could battle with my poems. And
Yeah.
so like that was exciting for me. Like I was young and getting into it. You know, I won in my area and whatever, and it was then we have a national team, right? And we go to compete at nationals. But then when I'm on a team and I'm competing at nationals, then all of my teammates, they just want me to do the one particular poem. And, you know, and that's the poem, is it's all for, they want me to pimp my pain, right? And
Yeah.
it's like, so we could get the scores and we could win. And everybody, I just begin to see like, man, this emotions, it's a beast, right? Like it'll eat you alive if you're not, you know, if you're not aware and conscious of the reason why you're writing this, the real reason why you're performing this.
Mm.
Huh?
Absolutely. And that's a great point. I haven't heard it expressed like that, as pimping your pain, but I think that describes it beautifully, especially in the poetry space, because I and then I'm involved in a lot of like self-development and almost like growth communities as well. And I've noticed there's a tendency to really, to focus on things like vulnerability, to focus on self-healing. And I've had the questions before, and I never really get like a clear answer, because I'm not sure there is one. There's a
Mhm.
time and place for vulnerable expression. There's a time
Yeah.
and place to where you could, let's say, write a poem about your pain. And okay, maybe that'll help you heal. Maybe that'll help you move on. Maybe that'll
Right.
help you let go. Right. So it's like, all right, we're not going to, don't run from that aspect. But at what point does all of your creative expression revolve around
Yes.
this pain and you
Yes.
identify who you are as that pain, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's a slippery slope because I've caught
It
myself
is.
in that at many times. It's like,
Because you
oh,
could get addicted, right? You
mm-hmm,
can get addicted. You get addicted. Yeah, I've been there. I've been the poet who like I could go into any venue in the city and they just let me in front of the line. Like
mm-hmm,
there it's you kind of become I had a song like local celebrity. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like and you can get addicted to that. And then you begin to do the thing that gets you that feeling. You're like chasing that feeling. And like how you were saying before, like you really have to check in with yourself, right? Like, really, what is this about? And
mm,
it could be a sacrifice because to write about something else means that I might not get that feeling again
yeah,
because everybody wants to see me turn myself inside out. They want to see me naked on the stage. They want to see me get naked on the stage. And today I'm wearing a bomber jacket. Like today I'm coming on with a trench coat and I'm not getting naked for y'all.
mm-hmm. And y'all gotta
They not
accept and embrace, you
it
know?
it's a strip club. The poetry spot is a strip club. And I'm
Mm.
coming in a trench coat and not taking it off.
That'll get the audience one howling at
Yeah.
you.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So what do I
100%.
do? Is do I strip or do I keep my jacket on? Like,
Mm-hmm. And I think the easy choice would be to give in to what has gotten you what has gotten you there. And it's the
yeah,
strip club in that sense. So all right, it's fine. Let me do it again. Let me
yeah.
validate that. But to go
Especially if you're
one's own
eating
way.
off of it.
Mm,
Especially if you're eating off of it. Especially when, who's booking college gigs and traveling the country and all of that, like
mm-hmm.
selling your books. You know what I mean? Like it really has a monetary thing to it. Like you don't want to work this 9 to 5 anymore. You want to be an artist. And so that's how we get to the rappers, right? Like the rappers, that's what they think. Like, I don't want to work at McDonald's. Like, I'm getting this money from this music. So I'm a
Right.
strip. Like,
But and you could ask the question though, at what point are you still truly, I guess you're still an artist, but to what degree, Are you an artist for your own authentic expression in who
right.
you are, or are you an artist for, again, a system
Yeah,
of
yeah,
monetary gain, of
yeah,
something that is not a representation of your true ideals and experiences?
right.
And do you think it's compatible to truly to find a way, like, what do you think? I guess I think it's compatible and it can happen, but what do you think it takes to really stick with oneself and continually having these conversations while also still thriving within the system that is here? Because there's not necessarily an escape from it, and we do have to play the game at times. So like,
Mhm.
it can be very discouraging to go one's own way and realize you're not going to get the validation for doing so, because
Yeah,
we're tribal beings. We look for
yeah,
feedback. We look for validation almost as a method of, because we're hunter gatherers and we're not
yeah,
receiving the validation from our tribe. Hey, we might be dead. That
yeah,
that might be the
yeah.
end of us. So
Right.
how do you actually commit to that?
I don't know. Like, I don't know if it's possible,
Yeah.
honestly, because it cuts off the food, right?
Mhm.
Like how you said, like in the hunter-gatherer thing, like at the end of the day, we live in a capitalist society, right? Like everything is a business. And
Mhm.
so um you can do it, but thriving is I don't know if you can thrive and do it. Like
Mhm.
you can do it and it's all in the way that you identify your success, right? So maybe
Mm-hmm.
that's the idea of thriving. And you're not thriving in the means of like somebody else's vision of success. So in a sense of like, you might not have all the money, you might not have all the accolades and stuff like that. If that's what the thriving is, if
Mm-hmm.
that's how that's viewed. But if you're able to like be your full self and not just this one side of you, and that's success to you, then yeah, I guess it is possible. But with that, you have to really be able to know the why, like how you were saying before. What is the real why behind what you're doing? Like, is the real why, how you said before, like healing? Is the real why myself speaking to my community and putting these messages out and having sparking conversations in a community and hopefully create a cultural shift in a community? Like, I don't think I'm going to make a cultural shift all over the country, but can I do that in Leimert Park? Like, can I create a cultural shift in just my surroundings or the people that I connect with, or even the people that just become my fans and start following me? Can I begin a cultural shift like that? That's success for me. And I might not have all the streams that Jay-Z has or that Kendrick Lamar has and all the Grammys, but so it's all in how you define success. And I think in that way, yeah, you can thrive and you can make it, but you can't begin to look outside and like kind of desire their success. Like,
Mm. Yep.
like if
Yep.
you're still desiring the accolades and the Grammys, you're not going to
Yeah.
feel fulfilled because you're not going to get those things.
Right. Exactly. There's a realistic, almost I think expectation we can have for oneself and define
Mm-hmm.
success in a way that is what is the direct impact I'm having on the people around me, right? Can I
Yeah.
go to bed at the end of the night knowing that I was authentic to myself, authentic to my community, was able to explore and express myself in a new way and contribute to something better than my individual self, right? Because if you're, let's say you're, and I don't think there's anything wrong with desiring success, but let's say you're desiring a Grammy or you're desiring some sort of accolade validation, the why then becomes self gratification in a way, more so
Mm-hmm.
than the direct impact that you're talking about. Because, I mean,
Right.
somebody like Jay-Z naturally has influence over society based on the amount of streams he has.
Yeah.
What influence he is having, I mean, that's listen to the music and you can find out pretty quick, right? It's not, it's all right there.
Right.
But I think it's more so focusing with the conscious intent of I'm going to make an impact more so than I'm going to be validated for my impact is when you actually
Mhm.
really start to make that impact, right? That's
Yeah.
really when you start to make change that actually matters. Because I think we all, regardless of our intent, we're kind of constantly going through life impacting the people around us anyways, even if it
Mm-hmm.
is more of a
Mm-hmm.
unconscious or even, if I show up in a
There's always
in a
influence.
yeah, if I
Yeah.
show up in a terrible mood to my job and I go in like looking for confrontation, I go in guns blazing, and I'm, maybe I'm a little more accusatory and I'm holding things like, and it's all internal, right? But
Yeah.
that presents itself externally, that's going to impact all of them. And who knows what
Yeah.
type of domino
Yeah.
effect that's going to have, especially for
Yeah.
somebody who is in a more vulnerable position, with
Right.
their own resources, right? So I think we got to be very conscious about how we're
Yeah.
showing up in that way because
Yeah.
we're going to make an impact regardless. I
Yeah. We're
don't know
not
if,
conscious enough,
yeah.
like, and yeah. And I think exactly to what you're speaking to. I'm releasing a song next month called The System,
Hmm.
speaking to that exact thing that you're talking about. Like that's the idea, right? Like, we are the system. So exactly what you're saying, like, we impact each other, we influence each other. Like, that's what the system is the way that we impact each other.
Hmm.
Like, it has an impact on our day. Us having a good conversation when I leave the conversation, I'm gonna feel kind of bubbly because I just had a good, healthy conversation, you know?
Right.
Whereas if I was just sitting with somebody who was just complaining and complaining and complaining, I'm afterwards like feel exhausted and down and like, man, I need a pick me up
Yeah,
because, you know, like, and that's all part of it, you know?
absolutely. Yeah, and what do you think is the, you've done a lot of the groundwork, and so am I, and I feel like these types of almost a more holistic approach and person-centered approach is becoming more of a focus, I
Mhm.
think, at least within a lot of the some of the organizations that are doing this groundwork. And I think in terms of, people within their communities, a lot of they're looking for solutions. They're looking for ways to have a more meaningful life. I think part of the with how global this world is, we sort of see people living the people living their dream, people living the best life, people getting finding all this beauty and meaning out of life in a way
Mhm.
that maybe we didn't see it before, and we didn't have a scope that was beyond directly what's in front of us. But so I think there's a
I wonder how genuine that is
well,
because we
right,
see that through social media. You know what I mean? So
right.
it's a curated display.
Right. No, and that's true. And it's like, what are we being influenced to believe about the world, influenced to believe about others? But a lot of the conversations that I'm having, and maybe it's because I'm looking for this. We're all biased in our own ways, but it feels like we're moving in a direction where a lot of people are tired of being influenced negatively by the system, or being feeding into, because I think a lot of these ideas, like not all of them, some of the aspects of the way that we organize ourselves are a bit archaic and not more modern, and they're not people centered. And I think
Mhm.
people are, at least in their interactions that I'm having, people are more people centered. They're more conscious about the impact that they can have on others, to a certain degree, as long as certain needs are being met. Not in every community by any means, but do you think we're trending in the right direction with this type of movement? I mean, do you have an outlook for what you think the system is going
I
to look
mean, if
like?
that was, I think, I think you're fortunate in your experience,
Yeah,
because, I don't know, I'm not seeing, I'm definitely seeing part of that. So
yeah,
I'm definitely seeing like that self help, the happiness centered thing, but it feels very much like a me happy, like make
yeah,
me happy, do what serves me,
yeah.
um not so much the others part. Like I'm not seeing the others part, like
Hmm.
the being sensitive to other people's needs, being sensitive to how I impact other people, just even on social media, like the debate of who's the GOAT, LeBron or Jordan. And you know, if you say either one, someone jumps on you and you should
Yeah,
jump off a cliff. Your
yeah.
mom should have never had you. Like, what
I say Larry Bird, and all of a sudden the comment section blow up.
Yeah, exactly. So like how centered are we?
Yeah.
Just some of the things that people say on social media, even like even racial stuff. Like
Mhm.
you would like to believe that we're getting into a better place with the whole racism and all. Like, can we've all been around each other for a long time now. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? But just there's a bunch of kids running into a mall and stealing everything, and then all the comment section becomes so like, right here they go again, look at all these monkeys, and it's
Right.
like, bro, for real, like you really feel comfortable just jumping out on and there's hundreds and hundreds of comments, and it's like, yeah, racism's still here. Like, you know,
Yeah.
it's gone nowhere. Like it's not hard to find people being venomous and just saying the worst of things in the spare of the moment on their keyboard or on their phone, regardless of how that affects anybody. Like, you're just throwing it on a wall. Like, you don't even know any of the people that's about to read this comment that you
Mhm.
just made and the impact that it's going to have on society, on the people. You know, like it's
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's as much as what I was saying before, as people who are willing to change, I think there is just as much reactivity as well.
yeah,
People
yeah.
who do just say what they will without even thinking about the greater picture. And it's interesting because I'm in Montana and it is like 95%, I want to say like 95% white.
Mhm.
Uh, but we did a study in the organization I work at, looking at different outcomes for, let's say one of the somebody who's unhoused does something in the actual shelter to where they're getting thrown out. It's a low barrier shelter. So there's no, like, anybody can come in, doesn't matter what their background is. There's nothing that, it's all behavior based. So if
Mhm.
somebody has behavior that is, we deem, you know, negligible, then they won't be able to come back, right?
Right.
And they're looking at the outcomes over the last couple years. And I've only been there since towards the end of um, last year, so I haven't been there that long. Where they're looking at what were the outcomes for, you know, minority groups versus, white. And white is the dominant.
Yeah.
This is
The
Montana.
majority.
White is
Right.
dominant,
Yeah.
right? It's,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, but it's interesting how for the same behavior, minorities were thrown out of the shelter more often when it wasn't a conscious decision.
Mhm.
It wasn't something that was like, oh, we're gonna he's an African American. Let's throw him out. It wasn't necessarily that, but it's like they'd
No, I
see
mean,
the implicit biases
it's the
that were,
system. Like,
yeah,
it's a natural thing. I mean, you know what I mean?
right.
It is
It's
what it is, you know what I mean? Like, it's something that we can't really deny that it exists, you know,
mhm,
like,
right, and it's one of those things I think we can only start with individual self, and like you were talking about, recognizing our own prejudices, recognizing
mhm.
how is it that I am feeding certain ideas or ideologies, or how am I reactionary,
Yeah.
and then from
Yeah.
there committing to do better, because none of us are going to be perfect by any
Right.
means.
Right. Right. Right.
It's and I think a lot of times it takes it's one of those hard to swallow pills to acknowledge I can do better. I can be more
Yeah.
accountable. I can be a bit more
Because
responsible.
there's so much shame in being wrong, right?
Yeah.
Like I started a verse off of this other song, like, being wrong doesn't mean something's wrong with you. Like, the
No.
only thing wrong is to deny it's true. Like there's so much of, like, if I'm wrong, there's something wrong with me. Like, if if too many of us, like, they make that connection, right? Like, and we see it in kids, if they have the wrong answer, and it's like you put your head down and it's like this shame come with it, because praise comes with being right, right? Like, it's so fundamental in our society. Like, you get praised for having the right answer or doing the right thing. And so naturally, when I do the wrong thing, even if you're not shaming me, the fact
Hmm.
that I don't receive the praise, because it becomes addictive, right? It's back to the
Yeah.
poetry spot and doing the poem, and everybody praised you. Like, the praise, you chase the feeling that you get from being praised.
Yeah.
So when you do something and you don't get that feeling, like, that's not what you want. You want the praise, right? So, like, in a bigger scheme of things, nobody wants to be wrong. And often, you see it in relationships, like, your significant other. I don't know if you, but I've been in relationships where, like, the person is clearly wrong, but they refuse to admit they're wrong. And they
Yeah.
begin to go all other angles and just pulling stuff from every angle, just to argue for the sake of being right, rather than the solution and the what are we really trying to get to, you
Yeah.
know? Um, and that's just in so much of our lives, from every aspect of our lives, it's just so much shame in being wrong that it prevents people from doing the self work. Like,
Yeah.
what was my part in this? Like, we can't do the what was my part in this, because me having a part in the thing that went wrong is is devastating, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think we tend to make it a reflection of our self-worth, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, like, but it's nothing wrong with you. It's nothing wrong with you. Like, you're not worth less because you were wrong, you
Right.
know? And in all honesty, well, my approach from early on was because I love being right. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Oh
Like
yeah, me too.
I love I love being right. But I realized the only way that I can be right all the time is if I could say that I'm wrong.
Mhm.
Because if I could see when I'm wrong and say, all right, yep, I'm wrong, then I could switch to do right, right? Like then I could change to the right answer. So then I could for real be right. And I just pretend that I'm right, but really be right.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, it's like that idea that true wisdom is knowing you know nothing, and that it's like, all right, I'm going to
Right.
accept the fact that I probably don't know anything, and I'm going to get a lot of this stuff wrong, and I'm
Yeah.
ignorant. There's always going to be more sides to it that I probably don't see and understand. So I'm going to miss aspects. But you know
Right.
what? That's cool. Let me approach it with what I see and what I can understand and go from
Yeah.
there. You
And
know?
let
And
me look at this other angle. Like
mm-hmm.
if we're having a conversation and you might be right. So let me look at what you're talking about. You know what I mean? Because for me, it's embarrassing to argue that I'm right when I'm really wrong.
Yeah.
And then everybody begins to see that I'm really wrong, but I'm sitting here like the dumbass. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's embarrassing for me. Like, I rather change and like to the perspective that makes more sense and that is more correct than for me to just stand on some
Right.
dumb stuff, you know?
Right.
Right.
And I think we're used to being almost in a competition or debate, we even with just our ideas and our opinions, as opposed to
Yeah.
listening to understand and maybe change and maybe grow. And it's like, all right, this person might be totally wrong and kind of dumb and ignorant, but I'm still gonna listen.
Right.
Let me hear what they have to say. At the very least, I could maybe learn about their perspective and
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
learn about their mindset.
I found myself doing that. Like it was I tend to like when people follow me, I'll check out their page and oftentimes I follow people back. And so like began following this one guy. And at first he was funny posts. And then he began to post like really racist stuff or whatever.
Hmm.
And the first time I kind of engaged it just to try to give some other perspective, and then he's just day after day, and I was like, dude, this dude is really like, what's the angle? Like, what is he trying to get out of this? Um, and of course, I could have unfollowed him, right? Like this simple as a click of a button. But
Hmm.
then I began to see like, but I need to know like what the line of thinking is. So
Yeah.
I just I don't engage anymore. I'm not getting it, argue with fools like you know what I mean? But at the same time, okay, what is the line of thinking? Like, what understanding can I gain out of hearing him spew whatever he's spewing unapologetically?
Right.
Like, yeah, so there's that what you're saying, sometimes I just need to see so I can understand what the angle is. Like,
Right. Exactly. There's no, I'd say, harm in at least healthy communication and
right.
attempting healthy communication, because it's like maybe somebody posts something and it is it's one thing, but it's not what the person thinks they're actually saying or posting. And if you
Mhm.
engage in a conversation, they change their view or they understand for the better, or at least you understand them for the better, right? And
Right.
it's like, okay, I can make peace with that uh
Right.
interaction, I suppose. I've definitely had
Mhm.
things like that in the past where it's like, okay, go with the flow, because I'm not the one to I personally, if it's somebody in my own life and I know them, like, we're all gonna have disagreements. It
Yeah.
would be very boring if we all thought the exact same way, because going out in the world, what would be the point?
Right.
So I kind of enjoy when I come across somebody or something that's like really challenges me, because I'm like, okay,
Mhm.
this is interesting. Let me let me feed into it. Let me hear it. Like I want to hear I want to hear what you have to say. So,
Right.
and I'm not going to hold it against them personally unless they are, and even then, like unless they are coming at me directly as a person in my character,
Mhm.
it's not
Mhm.
about me at the end of the day. I'm not going to play the victim. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. Like,
Right.
they'll do their thing. I'll do my thing. And maybe we can try and understand each other. But, you know,
Right.
I think if people had that approach to at least communication, maybe we'd have a little bit healthier dialogue in our
Yeah.
communities and on the
Yeah.
bigger picture too, because so much of within the system is unhealthy communication. It's almost like
Yeah.
violent communication. It's
Yeah.
coercion. It's
Yeah.
it's threats of force. You need to see it my way, or you need to follow this political
Yeah.
figure. You need to look at this. You need to look at that. And it's
Yeah.
like, hold up,
Yeah.
we've
Yeah.
lost the
Yeah.
plot.
Yeah. It's very much sometimes I think it's like a colonial way of thinking, right? Like because it's always us individually tend to think my way of thinking is better. And all you need is to think like me.
Yeah.
If you just thought like me, life would be better. And so we try to force our ways of thinking on each other, right? Like politically, socially, like and there's so many like fights on social media, even entertainment wise, even sports. Like I was saying with the GOAT conversation, is it Kobe, LeBron, or like everybody wants to force the other one to think like them. And if you don't think like me, you're a fool. Like you're
Mhm.
less than. If you don't think like me, you're less than. And they even go as far as like you shouldn't even exist.
Right.
If you don't think like me, you shouldn't even exist. And it's ridiculous. You know what I mean? It's like it's ridiculous to not see that we all have a space in this world. Like this world is a big place. You know what I mean? And like every culture has its space. The LeBron lovers have a space, and the Jordan lovers have a space. And like, I don't need to come conquer your space.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that goes across, different cultures because culture of LA is going to be a lot different than the culture of Montana, right? And that's in the same
Clearly,
country. It's in the
right?
same country. You said
Right.
West LA versus East LA, right?
Yeah.
Even
Right.
within a 10-mile radius,
Yeah.
And I think that there's a beauty in honoring that instead of trying to get people to all act the same or be the same because people are different. They have
Yeah.
different experiences. And I think
Yeah.
I think the artistic beauty, something that makes art is the recognition of those different cultures and recognition of those different spaces. And you can kind of go somewhere and, one of my favorite places that I've been to, I remember only time I've ever been to Europe, I was in Paris and I went to the Louvre, the art museum. And I didn't have a deep
Mhm.
appreciation of art then. Like I was kind of, just going through life at that point and I wasn't paying all that much attention to art. But I remember going in there and being blown away by the different art and throughout the different time periods and seeing all of it. I'm like, wow, there's just
Mhm.
such like stories being told through a painting, you know?
Right.
Like there's somebody's life work is in that and like their whole life story. And it's like, can you sit there and like just acknowledge and be present with that and somebody's
Mhm.
authentic expression? I mean, not everybody's going to paint the Mona Lisa necessarily, but there's still a story behind all of it.
Right.
So,
Right.
and I think that's true. I would hope with, I put out a poem. If somebody's going to interact with it, I hope that the way they would interact with it is to just engage and be authentic with it and be like,
Mhm.
let it draw out authenticity within themselves so they can feel and understand, right? So
Mhm.
I think if everybody had that sort of outlet or at least began to explore that, then a lot of these um, not the problems wouldn't solve themselves necessarily. Challenges wouldn't solve themselves. We still got a lot of work to do, a lot of healing to do, a lot of communication to be had. But
Right.
it's at least a start because I think everybody has authenticity they're desiring to express.
Mhm.
Work like yourselves like that you're doing, for example. it can be an inspiration for that. It's like, hey, he's
Yeah.
authentic. I hear authenticity here.
Hopefully.
What does that look like for me? Then people can start to explore that a little bit. But
I think the biggest challenge for me is like, um, I have to accept that same thing for me. Like,
yeah,
so in the sense of like, there's still a degree of if everybody just thought like me. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like,
Oh, of course.
even if everybody just thought like me in the thinking that everybody should let everybody think the way they want to.
Yeah,
Like it's this. So I within myself have to accept that you know, some people need to conquer.
yeah,
And they're not gonna think like me. And I can't expect them to think like me. I can't try to force them to think like me. And that's the conundrum with life and existence. And there being so many people on the planet, right? Like, um, there's always going to be some sense of government, even if we didn't have government.
yeah.
Because even if you got rid of government, there's alphas in society that's
Hierarchy.
going
Yeah.
to become the government. Like,
Right.
I mean, like, um, and so all I could really do is, like you said, like share, right? All I could do is approach life the way that I see fit to approach life. And if that can inspire other people, if that can have a positive impact on other people, then that's beautiful. And I feel like a worth in that. Um, I can't force the like I can't force me on everybody. And I know that I'm not for everybody. Like everybody's not going to love the music. Everybody's not going to get the music. Um, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I have to be cool with that too.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. It'd be like, all right, you know what? Somebody doesn't resonate with it. That's cool. Maybe there's something in their experience to where they just cannot understand my experience. That's cool. That's
Like
cool.
let them have
I
their
can,
space. Like
yep.
let them have their space, like
Exactly. Exactly. Because the second one of the, I had somebody, a conversation last summer where they asked me, how do you marshal love against tyranny? Like, how do you use love and organize love in a way to defeat aspects of tyranny? And I was thinking about it, and it was such a deep question and thought. And I'm like, I don't know if I can organize love. I don't know if I can even the word marshal to like almost like
it's an oxymoron.
yeah, it's like I don't even know if I can do that with love, right? To love is to let it be in a sense, you know?
Mhm.
And I think sometimes that's the greatest thing we can do. If I want to push love, some of it is it's not my alley. It's not my it's not my backyard to go conquer, you know?
Yeah,
Let it
yeah,
be,
yeah,
let it
yeah,
flow,
yeah.
and people will do them, you know? And I sometimes that's
And
a hard pill to swallow, you know? The whole
and
world is
off
not necessarily my responsibility, you know?
Yeah, yeah. And I feel like the bridge will build itself.
Yeah.
Like oftentimes we just like leave people their space, then the olive branch comes across,
Hmm.
you know, because everybody wants safety, right? Like that's at the end of the day, that's kind of like what life revolves around is securing our needs and like food, shelter, you know what I mean? And so many things like just stem out of that. Even hoarding money and hoarding riches um is kind of rooted in the fear of like ever not having. And whether it be like you not having or your kids not having or your grandkids not having at some point you're hoarding it all for this sense of like safety. And then we get like the esteem and the others worshiping us and looking up to us and it just builds up from there. But if like us forcing our way of thinking is threatening to other people, so it's combative. We think that we're like trying to recruit people or however you want to say it, like you're pushing your way on to people, but that actually makes them fight you more. Whereas
Yeah.
if you let people be, then they can begin to feel safe around you, right? And then when they can feel safe around you, it's like, okay, you're cool. And now when I see that you're cool, it's like a new neighbor, right? If I
Hmm.
see that you're cool and all of a sudden your car's not starting up, I feel cool to come help you. Like, oh, well, what you need? Like, because I see you're cool and you're not a threat, you
Right.
know. But like when somebody seems like threatening to you, you don't even care about what they need because they're threatening, they're trying to take what I have. So I
Hmm.
think the more that we could let each other be, the more peaceful we become, and actually the more bridges are built from that. And then we end up, when we build a bridge, we begin to create a culture together. You know what I mean? Like,
Exactly. Yep. And that's the beauty of it. I think the moment I try and force, even if I perceive them to be great values and morals and whatever it may be, my way of life onto somebody, I am saying the way you're doing it, who you are, not valid, doesn't matter, don't care.
right,
You know,
right, right, right,
that's like
right.
that's that's worse than an act of violence. That's a disregard of the person somebody is and their
Yeah,
experience. You know,
yeah,
and it comes back to people want to be seen. People want to be understood. You know, they
yeah,
don't need to be told how to live.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
so yeah, that would be I think the greatest act of uh, tyranny is to disregard the individual and the soul and somebody's lived experience. So that was a big learning lesson for me in a way to think about that
Mm,
idea. Let it be. Let it be. Let it flow.
yeah,
It'll sort itself out. You know, we'll
yeah.
build together eventually when the time is right. You know.
Mm-hmm.
So, so awesome, man. We're about an hour, 15 minutes in.
I
This
know
has
it's
been
that.
fantastic. This has been flowing. You have any I don't know about final thoughts or just ideas you're sitting with or places you'd want to send the listeners to further engage with your own work? I know you said you had some future projects coming out soon, some new music or
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm releasing some new. I don't know when this will post. It might be at the same time, something like that. But
Mhm.
yeah, I'm releasing new songs. So everything's always on all of the streaming services. So it's
Yeah.
just GaKnew, which is GaKnew. And I have my website GaKnew.com with like paintings, and my book is for sale on the website, music and stuff like that. And I'm really trying to. It's a whole separate conversation, but the music landscape and the streaming services, it really you can't sustain as an artist off of streaming, right? It's like
Hmm.
0.003 of a penny. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Uh, you need three streams to get a penny, basically. So, um, what I've been doing is just releasing singles on like the streaming services, but then housing the complete project on my website. So then people could go to my website and purchase the music from me, and then that way I could sustain myself as an artist and keep continuing to make art.
Hmm.
And the point of making the art is to have like a more positive impact on the community, and the demographic of people that do listen to hip hop, to know that there's a different voice in hip hop and not just the negativity that just keeps like folding on top of itself. Um, so yeah, that's really it. Thank you. I dug. This is a great conversation, man.
Yeah,
Like,
no, this has been good.
yeah,
We'll have to plan on doing it again because I think like it's the type of conversation that it continues to evolve and expand upon itself as time goes on, and as the world, as we change, as the world changes, our perspectives change and grow and evolve. So, I think
right.
we'll have to keep doing it, and I look forward to seeing your creative expression continue to come out because like I said before, I think we hopped on, there's like I think you just get it. Like you have the perspective that I'm like, all right, this dude's real. He's authentic.
Same.
I think that's what
Same.
it is. So, I appreciate the work you're doing because
Thank you.
just listening into it and knowing what the reality is for a lot of people in the world. Like there's a lot of people I think who need authenticity, who need a voice to not just the negative experiences, but like let's
Yeah.
shine some light on hope and optimism. and
Right.
creating solutions and
Right.
bringing people back
Right.
to themselves. And, that's what you're doing. So I think let that be a testament to your work and the impact you do
Thanks.
have. So, um,
Where so you were saying you're like working out here like your work at?
yeah, yeah. So you're talking in what, in LA?
You no, I mean
No?
like do you like do you release like poetry projects or
Oh
like
yeah, yeah. I put out a poetry book last winter. So I
Mhm.
put out a poetry book, just kind of independently published, and
Yeah.
people can go buy a copy. I'm happy to send you one. If you wanted to read some of the
Yeah.
poetry in there, I'll send it your
Okay.
way. Give you a nice little signed copy of one. Um,
That's what's
and
up.
I put out a lot of times, like on social media, I'll put out poetry and just, my authentic writing. And it's been interesting because I've gone through I've been having something we talked about earlier, the discussion of, okay, what is healing versus what is like perpetuation of said new identity of pain,
Right.
it's like,
Right.
because I've had my life experiences where, the heart shattered, people dying, like, just
Right.
life happens. And it's like,
Right.
okay, how do I continue to grow within the poetry and express about the people in my own community, move beyond the identification with pain, right? So those have been a lot of
Mhm.
concepts I've been exploring myself, because it is so easy for me to sit down and write a poem about like heartbreak or like love or
Yeah.
whatever it
Yeah.
is,
Yeah.
what's
Yeah.
familiar.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I myself am like in a, I don't know, a creative, a new, I don't know. The poetry feels new again, which is nice.
That's
Sometimes
great.
you kind of have
Yeah.
to continually have it feel new every once in a while. And I feel like
Right.
sometimes that makes it a little bit more like difficult to commit and sit down and write, but
Hmm.
it's because it is new. It's a little more, oh, I got to be honest with myself right here. I can't just rely on what I know, but it makes it more fun and exciting. So,
Right.
but yeah, I'll send you a poetry book. And my like personal goal is to put out one sort of independently published poetry collection per year, just because I
Mhm.
write enough to where I have enough poetry to where I can kind of do that. And
Right.
so that's sort of and wherever that, whatever, however people interact with that, that's people do. I hope people can take something from it and learn from my experience, but at the same time,
Right.
you know uh, uh, publishing it and sharing it is usually, for me, that's where I feel like the success is, at least in my eyes,
Mhm.
so
Right.
far.
Right. Right.
But yeah, yeah, I'll send you a
Cool.
copy of it, because I love, that's my creative voice, at least, in the
Right.
poetry.
That's what's up. Well,
Yeah,
cool. Thanks.
yeah, awesome, man. Yeah, and I encourage all the listeners, since we are still recording on here, I encourage all the listeners, head on over to not just the streaming platforms, maybe check out the singles on the streaming platforms, but then go buy the actual albums and music, because in support. So, and awesome, brother. Any other final thoughts or ideas or things you want to leave people with?
Um,
That's a big overarching question.
yeah, 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 yeah. I mean, it's like there's endless, but yes, yeah.
I think we're in the same
I,
spot.
I appreciate you having me on though. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, we just like connected yesterday or whatever.
Yeah, no, for real. It came
It was,
together quick. I
yeah,
saw the book and I'm like, let's go. This is because a lot of times
that's what's up.
people book like a month out or whatever it is. And I'm like, all right, cool, yeah. But it's like, let's go, let's do it. We gonna make it happen. So,
That's good. That's good. It was good meeting you too. Like, yeah,
abs-
it's good energy. Like, yeah.
for sure. Yeah, likewise, man. And like I said, let's plan on doing it. Let's plan on doing it again in the near future. I'll have this out within the next like couple weeks or so. So,
Okay.
and if you wanted to, I could time it to be with when your music's coming out. I mean,
Oh, cool. Uh,
if you wanted to do that, I mean, you could always just, I don't know if you have a specific date in mind for that. If you
well,
said in
I'm
the next.
releasing something April 15th, but
Oh,
honestly,
okay.
I'm trying to release something every month. So
Okay.
it just like
Well,
it
yeah, I mean, if I could time this to be right, or like right before or right after if you want, and then it can kind of be, I could, because I usually do
yeah,
a pre-recorded intro too, and like, so in that I could say, hey, he has his new song out. go check it out. As of just came out 2 days ago, whatever it is. I don't know.
All right, yeah,
Uh,
that's what's up. Well, yeah, so the system is the song that I'm releasing. And
okay.
that's kind of like my experience. Not it's partly it's colored by my experience in working in a social work and with the juvenile justice system,
Mhm.
but it's also talking about what our conversation was about and our influence and our impact on each other is really, you know, what I try to explore in the third verse. And I realized in a rap is we can't have the conversation that we had in a song.